For this unit, we're going to solve each equation with the quadratic formula. The quadratic formula is x equals negative b plus or minus the square root b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Whenever I write this out, I like to write it as x equals negative, I put parentheses wherever there's a letter, plus or minus the square root of a letter squared minus 4 letter over 2a. And I just copy that on every single one of these. So when I substitute in, I know that this is the a because of standard form, ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. So anything with two x's, so an x squared would be a. There's nothing with an x, so b will be 0, nothing's there. And c will be the 64. I plug them in. So 0, 0, a is a 1, c is a negative 64, and a is a 1. So I get 0 plus or minus the square root. I'm going to enter in this my calculator, so we will get 0 squared minus 4 times 1 times negative 64, which is 256 over 2 times 1 is 2. And then I'm going to simplify it one more step, so 0 plus or minus second square root of 256 is 16 over 2. So we have 0 plus 16 over 2, which is an 8. And then we have 0 minus 16 over 2, which would equal a negative 8. And those are our two solutions using the quadratic formula. On problem number 20, we have x equals negative b plus or minus the square root b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Plug them in. We have a, b, c. X is equal to negative b plus or minus square root b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So we get negative 1 plus or minus the square root over 2 times 3 is 6. Let's find out what that equals. 1 squared minus 4 times 3 times negative 70 is 841. Square root of 841 is 29. I'm going to split that up. Negative 1 plus 29 would be 28 over 6. Negative 1 minus 29 would be negative 30 over 6. I can reduce them. So 28, half of 28 would be 14 over half of 6 is 3. So 14 over 3 is one solution, and negative 5 is my other solution. We have x equals negative b plus or minus the square root b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. We have an a because of the x squared. There's no b and c. 0, 0 minus 4ac all over 2a. So we get 0 plus or minus the square root. 4 times 2 is 8, times 2 is 16 over 4. Square root of 16 is 0 plus or minus 4 over 4. Positive 4 divided by 4 is 1. Negative 4 divided by 4 is negative 1. X equal to negative b plus or minus the square root b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Plug in our a, b, c. B's are first, then 4ac all over 2a. Negative 5 plus or minus the square root over 12. Let's check. 5 squared minus 4 times 6 times negative 4 is 121, and the square root of 121 is 11. If you want to double check. Okay. When I break it up, I'm going to work a little bit backwards. Negative 5 plus 11 would be 6 over 12, which is 1/2. And then negative 5 minus 11 would be negative 16 over 12. Half of 16 is 8. Half of 12 is 6. And I can do it again. Half of 8 is negative 4. Half of 6 is 3. So it reduces to negative 4/3. And then we have 1/2 as our two solutions. X equals negative b plus or minus the square root b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Plug them in. A, B, C. 6a c over 2a. Negative 6 plus or minus over 8. Let's see what's inside our square root. 6 squared minus 4 times negative 4 is 100, which is equal to negative 6 plus or minus 10 over 8. Negative 6 plus 10 is 4 over 8, which would give you 2 over 4, then 1/2. Negative 6 minus 10 is negative 16 over 8, which gives you a negative 2. Last one, 24. X equals negative b plus or minus the square root b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Plug them in, and we get a, b, c. B's go first. 4ac all over 2a. Negative 8 plus or minus the square root over 6. Enter in the radical, so 8 squared minus 4 times 3 times negative 16 is 256. And when we take this square root of 256, it's negative 8 plus or minus 16 over 6. 8 plus, so negative 8 plus 16 would be 8 over 6, which is 4 over 3 when I reduce it. And then negative 8 minus 16 will be negative 24 over 6, which gives us a negative 4. And that is how you use the quadratic formula to solve an equation.